So you've probably heard of this game trend called gamification. You've probably also heard about gamified learning or immersive learning for that matter. And you might be wondering, what's the difference between these two? You might also say, hey, heck, what is the difference and how does it matter? It's really important to understand the difference between gamified learning and gamification. Nowadays, gamification has really caught on as a trend, and all industries, including learning and development, have gravitated towards using it in one form or another. While a learning professional might see this and say, how does it matter? I'm interested in using games for learning. It's still important to know and understand the difference because they're both used for two distinct purposes. But before I go into explaining how gamification and gamified learning are different, it's important to understand the architecture and design that both of these methodologies are built on. So let's get right into it. Gamification is essentially a layer over a real-life environment, kind of like Iron Man. If you've seen Iron Man, then you know the augmented reality environment that Iron Man is always playing with. Its job is to augment reality, which means add a layer of game over what we consider real life. One example may be the Great Speed Camera Lottery, when they awarded drivers for driving under the speed limit. Basically, the way the game works was as follows. Drivers drive past a speed camera, their photos are snapped, and the speeding drivers are sent a ticket for a fine. The money that is generated from the fine is placed in a lottery pool, the winner of which could be one of the non-speeding drivers. As a result of this gamification, the average speed decreased by 7 kilometers an hour, which is quite a significant achievement. So to put it simply, it's a layer of game over a real-life situation. But gamified learning or immersive learning is a whole different ballgame. Gamified learning is a separate environment altogether, kind of like Matrix. It's a different world altogether. It means the player, whoever is playing, is immersed in that experience and is not thinking about anything else during the experience. It's a very separated experience from real life. In gamified learning, the context, environment, rules, roles, natural laws even are changed. Some games exercise to full extent these levers, and some only a few. An example of gamified learning is Evolve, a game which is used for leadership development in a closed and controlled environment. In Evolve, players are brought into a room where they are immersed in a virtual environment. They live, operate, make choices, and deal with the consequences in this virtual world, which isn't directly connected with the player's real life. After the gameplay, the players are then given an opportunity to reflect about their behaviors, and learning crucibles are extracted from the experience players just had. To learn more about Evolve, check the comments below. Now, as promised, onto the uses of gamification and gamified learning. Gamification and gamified learning are used to achieve different purposes. If your objective is to simply influence business and life outcomes such as increase sales, lose weight, complete tasks on time and become more productive, and so on, gamification is the way to go, because it will enable you to influence the behavior which is taken in real life and as a result help achieve the outcome. However, I would use gamification with caution. A good gamification solution has to be well designed that accounts for all the variables in a player's real life world. And gamifiers have to be careful to ensure that they're gamifying behaviors and not outcomes, because players will find a way to achieve the outcome without living the behavior. Overlooking this and some other important design principles in gamification design has led to gamification losing some popularity due to undesirable outcomes. Gamified or immersive learning, on the other hand, can be used for enabling learning through reflection to drive change in deep-seated behaviors at subconscious levels. By interacting in a virtual world which implicitly connects to your real world, players are more likely to bring out their natural behaviors. This is kind of like playing a real game with data analysis on the back end. This opens up the gateway for players to see how they might handle similar situations in their personal and professional lives, and enable them to become more open towards learning. The scope of learning in a gamified learning environment can extend from emotional intelligence to strategic thinking to decision making and design thinking. In a nutshell, gamified or immersive learning is used for driving change from inside out, and gamification is used for driving change from outside in. Both approaches have merit, but the choice of usage of one from the other has to be considered based on what you're trying to achieve as an end result. If you're trying to trigger some short-term changes for a project or an agile sprint, which doesn't require a long-term behavioral shift, a well-designed gamification system is a good idea. But if your strategy includes a long-term thought process and behavioral change, gamified or immersive learning is what I would highly recommend. I hope this gives you a good idea of the difference between immersive learning and gamification. Stay tuned for more on immersive learning, game-based learning, and gamification. Mohsin Memon from MemCorp Immersive Learning signing off.